There was another case linked to the Pelicot investigation that really exposed the same horror, okay? Men treating their wives like property, not people. Anthony Eissenmenger was sentenced to 15 years in prison after being convicted of raping and sexually assaulting his wife, secretly recording images without her knowledge, and possessing child porn. And this came out of the Dominique Pelicot investigation. So this is really interesting because that case was big, big news. But let's talk about what this actually means, this little spin-off, right? This is not one monstrous man. This is not one shocking case. This is actually uncovering a whole bunch of different cases. And we've seen a lot of this with the 62 million in the Rape Academy and all kinds of different cases and news articles. But we don't have to let one headline make everybody gasp for 3 minutes and then just go back to believing that married men are safe, when married men are actually the biggest threat to their wives. One of the most dangerous myths is that a wife is safe because she's with someone that allegedly loves her. Sometimes marriage is exactly where the access is, where the control is easiest. We always talk about men and husbands being providers and protectors, but sometimes they're just the threat and they have a house key. They're the threat and you have to make them dinner. We keep being told that men protect women, that they provide, that men keep women safe, that they're the heads of the household and the leaders and the strong ones and the logical ones. That means that women should trust them. But over and over, the most severe harm that women experience comes from the men that are closest to them, their husbands and boyfriends and exes, the man that they share a bed with, the man that everyone around us assumes would never do this. So I want to talk about the Anthony Eissenmenger case, how it connects to Dominique and Gisèle Pelicot, and what these cases actually very much reveal about men when they think that no one is watching. I want to talk about why marriage doesn't protect women from male violence and why relational abuse is hiding behind the exact roles that we were told would make us safe. My name is Lisa Sonni. I'm a certified relationship coach, author of 5 books, and I'm an expert in toxic and abusive relationships. And on this channel, I expose what abusive men do so that women can see it, become more clear, exit these relationships, and rebuild themselves. So let's talk about this guy, Anthony, right? This is the current case. He was just sentenced in France to 15 years in prison. Now, his convictions included a whole bunch of fun little things like raping and sexually assaulting his wife, secretly recording sexual images without her knowledge, and possessing child porn. Now, this case actually came out of the larger case that Dominique Pelicot was involved in. And this is interesting. This is why it matters, right? This was not discovered because the public became really good at realizing that wives are telling the truth when they're making a claim against their husband. It actually came out of another investigation. That's part of the horror to me. How many women are actually just living with men who are doing things in private that no one on the outside could ever imagine? How many wives are being told that they're safe while they are married to the danger, while they are sleeping next to the threat? Dominique Pelicot is a man who drugged his wife, Gisèle Pelicot. And she was big in the news when this came out because she handled things very differently. She was like front and center, happy to be part of the headlines because she wanted this to be a movement. Her husband invited men to rape her while she was unconscious, and he filmed it and organized it and cataloged it. And he did this inside their marriage, inside their bedroom where she should have been safest. Are you horrified? Good. Stay horrified, but do not treat this man like he came from another planet, like he's so rare. That's a ridiculous thing. The investigation actually exposed all of these men talking and discussing tactics and, talking about chemical submission. This explains so much. And this is why the Eissenmenger case matters so much, because it goes back to the same ecosystem, right? Men are talking about how to override women's bodies inside their relationships. Marriage is just access. Marriage is not necessarily two people love each other and go get married. You talk to a lot of married men about their view on sex and their view on what they expect of their wives. And they actually expect that she has given up her bodily autonomy and now, two bodies become one. And yet it only seems to be her body that becomes his. But people want marriage to mean protection and love. And we still call it that, commitment and safety and loyalty and trust. But it can also create access to her body, her routines, her private life, her credibility. And then we have this story of like, he's her husband, right? So when he's abusive, what happens then? He's dangerous, but yet we see him in the role of husband, and really it's just a cover because people think he loves her. He married her. He must love her. No, being a husband does not make a man safe. His behavior could make him safe, or it could make him the most dangerous man in her life. And this myth that I personally am so wildly passionate about, making sure women do not believe this absolute garbage fairy tale Disney myth of male protectors, okay? Because that only protects men. Men are not protectors. And if you disagree with me, you can go ahead and disagree with me, but that only makes you wrong. Men are not natural protectors. They protect what they think they own from others, but that's actually territorial. It's not protective. And they are not even protecting what they own because too often they're the very threat to what they own. Not that I like any of the language around men owning their wives, but I'm talking from their perspective. If people wrongly believe that men are protectors by default, then women have to work harder to prove that the man is the danger, right? But he's your husband, but he provides. Oh, but he's the father of your children. He seems so normal. He would never, all of this garbage. He wouldn't until he did. He wouldn't until it happened, until the evidence came out, until we could prove it. We're not making this up. A woman cannot be protected by other people's imagination and what they're thinking that her husband is actually like. Women are not automatically safe just because they're inside their marital home. And honestly, romanticizing it is childish, okay? Home can be safety, but it can also be danger, surveillance, control, coercion, psychological warfare. Women are being forced to have sex in their relationships. This is where they are most afraid. The amount of women that are terrified to go home, or when you drive home at night and you pull into your driveway and you're like, ugh, before you have to go inside, because you know what's in there. You know a grumpy, angry, or abusive or coercive man is in there. And the United Nations has actually repeatedly pointed to the home as one of the most dangerous places for women in terms of lethal violence. I remember watching a video and it was like a former FBI guy who was asking the question, where is the most dangerous place for a woman? And it's interesting because he filmed it at a gas station. So a lot of people were like, oh, is it a gas station? Is it out in public? Is it when she's pumping gas? Like, what did this mean? And actually, he just chose that spot randomly. What he was asking was, do people understand that the home is the number one place where women are hurt and attacked? Women are harmed, abused, or killed by intimate partners and their family members who are male at staggering rates. Like, you'd be shocked if you don't already know the rates. If you actually believe science and facts, which so many people just go, that's not true. It is the most frustrating thing because science proves this. Facts prove this. And just saying they're not true only supports abusive men. So when women say that they're afraid of their own homes, listen to them. Don't ask, why didn't you just leave? It's a ridiculous question. That's the question that everyone keeps dodging. But why did he do it? Why did he make things so hard for her? Why did he choose to abuse her? Now, what do men do when they think that no one's watching is a really interesting and frankly terrifying question, because that is a terrifying concept. Really think about this. And there's been so many studies recently that actually show when you frame things a little bit differently, what men will admit to. If you ask them if they've ever assaulted someone, they'll say absolutely not. But if you describe what an assault entails, they'll say absolutely they've done those things. They just don't like the language. But it's because they believe they're entitled to treat women this way. So ask what a man will do when his wife is unconscious, when she's drugged, sleeping, isolated, when nobody's paying attention, when she's financially dependent, when she can't leave. What they admit when the platform is anonymous, right? That's the question. They're not going to admit it to you. It needs to actually be anonymous. You really can learn a lot from what men will admit when they think no one is watching. But this is all about their belief systems. It's not about their trashy little public statements about respecting women. No, we see what's really going on. Their private behavior when they think that no one's watching, when they think there's going to be no consequences, it's some scary stuff. They're just entitled, but there's no witnesses. Now, Dominique Pelicot did not operate inside of a vacuum, right? He actually used online spaces. Men communicated, they advised, they encouraged, they participated. And I don't want to go into all the details of that case because it's actually sickening. In a broader conversation, people have referred to those spaces as an online rape academy. And there is an online rape academy. of which 62 million men participated in some capacity in just a specific time frame, which obviously means even more men over a longer timeline. Don't get caught up in the numbers. 2 men is too many. 62 million is unbelievable. And for anybody feeling particularly defensive right now and saying, well, it wasn't 62 million men, it was 62 million views, you're not making the point you think you're making. Who cares? I think it's important to be accurate about what any one investigation proves, but the concept itself is still absolutely horrifying. Men are teaching other men how to drug, assault, film, hide, and evade detection. It is insane. Men are swapping tips. They are treating sexual violence into this community of like, well, we all share this hobby. It's disgusting. Nobody serious is saying every single man does this, but the main point that all the women are trying to make is that we don't know which ones. The whole you picked him thing is the most lazy, pathetic, stupid excuse that I have ever heard, because women do not pick these men. These men are kind and married and very covert, and they have jobs of all different backgrounds, and they come from all different places in every country in the world. And there's enough of them that they are finding each other and encouraging each other and learning and protecting each other, and that should terrify everyone. Women are often treated as a better target when they're somebody's wife. And I think that's one of the ugliest parts, because a wife is easier to discredit, to drug, to silence, and to pressure. The relationship itself, it gives him a cover story, right? She's my wife. Yeah, we have a sex life. It's private. We have problems. It's marital issues. Or she's unstable. She's trying to ruin me. All of the garbage that these men say, right? But the marriage is part of the defense. And they claim like their intimacy, which is just sex, right? For men, that's the word that they sort of use as if they're interchangeable when they're not. But it's part of the camouflage. It's how they hide. This is why marital rape and intimate partner sexual violence gets minimized so often, because they're married, right? Isn't that just automatic consent? So many men think that. So many women think that. This is relational abuse. It is. And it's at its most extreme. People act like it's yelling or it's insults. Listen, at its core, relational abuse is one person using the relationship to get access and power and control and cover over the other person, right? He loves using love as a cover. She's my wife, marriage as a cover. His family protects him having a family. I don't even mean your in-laws. I mean him having a family. He's a family man. He's a father. That's why a lot of these guys get described as like loving husband and father snapped. No, he didn't snap. When we act like something happened that made him snap, we're actually taking away the fact that there is a systemic pattern happening, brewing underneath that many of us don't see publicly. And unfortunately, even the women in the relationships often don't see. My clients constantly describe that they didn't know that they were in an abusive relationship. And so many people think, how the hell could you not know? And yet, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of women who have explained their abuse and experienced these things have all said, I didn't know it was abuse at first. It's a lack of abuse education. It's also men being like, screaming at my wife isn't abuse. When I'm mad at her, what does she expect? It's that same attitude, right? So it's not marital coercion. There's no such thing because she's my wife. I'm allowed to do these things. That in and of itself is a problem. And anyone who spews that is part of the problem. But men who are husbands and fathers, they're seen as protectors. And then women doubt themselves because we're all trained to look outside, right? Stranger danger. Don't go in dark alleys. Don't be in a parking garage. Men are going to jump out of the bushes. But we don't talk about the men sleeping in our beds. We're always so focused on the monsters in the closet. What about the monsters in our beds? That's what we need to be focused on. Men who we cook for and had children with, and men who we've trusted our bodies with. This creates a very specific kind of confusion, if not traumatic cognitive dissonance. Because when the protector becomes the danger, your brain struggles to make sense of it because he's supposed to be safe and he tells you he loves you. He's your person, but he's not. He also hurts you, right? The role says husband and the behavior says threat. Believe the behavior, which is very hard when you're in it. But ordinary men are part of the horror. This is what I'm saying. We act like it's these monsters, these anomalies. It's not. Look at the numbers of the men that we keep finding as part of these dark, horrible chat threads online and doing these horrible, horrible acts. I think one of the most disturbing things about the Pelicot case wasn't just the man himself that did it. It was the number of men that participated, the ordinariness of them, the carpenters and teachers and just average men, doctors, whatever, that just participated. The men with families and routines, men who did that and then walked back into their own house. Men who walked into this man's house, saw an unconscious woman and told themselves, oh, she's in on it, which I don't even believe is what they were being told. But even if you give them that ridiculous benefit of the doubt, they saw an unconscious woman and they participated. People don't want to face that. We act like it's committed by these cartoon monsters and that these very specific villains and like you picked him, you should have known better. And we act like it's not happening by men who just go to work the next day. Men who have neighbors who seemed normal to somebody, right? So if your only safety test is, does he seem normal to you? You're not testing safety. You're an idiot, truly. You can't just go by what you look at on the outside. It seems such like a dumbed down thing to say, but we can imagine this. If somebody robs a bank, they might go to jail. And so what they would want to do is make sure that people don't know that they robbed the bank. So they do things like wear a mask and flee the scene and try to hide it from people, right? Have an alibi. Why would domestic abusers be any different? Why do we not also apply the same logic of, okay, well, it's wrong to do that, therefore the perpetrator would try to hide it? Why is that not the easiest thing that we could all just accept? That of course, anybody committing an act that is either illegal or immoral would attempt to hide it. And look at the way that they might try to hide it. They might try to seem like a nice guy, right? That's the alibi. It's exactly the same thing. I don't know why this point gets lost on people. But all of this to say, there's a myth of male protection, and it distracts a lot from male access. I'm never going to believe that men protect women. I've never been protected by a man. And when I say that, oh yeah, did you ever call the police? They helped you. First of all, no, they didn't, right? Law enforcement does not typically help victims, which is a horrible fact, but it's true. But every time in my life that I personally have been victimized by men, women have helped me or no one has helped me, but it's definitely never been men. And I've been hurt by strangers, not always a dark man in the alley, also by intimate partners, right? The man in the bedroom, the man with the house key. We can't ignore the fact that that's where most harm is happening to women, in a place where we're meant to be safe. So when people keep talking about men as protectors, it makes me want to barf because all we're doing is protecting a fantasy. And women are paying for that fantasy with their bodies and their dignity. Relationship titles, not proof of safety at all. Boyfriend doesn't mean safe. Father of your children doesn't mean safe. Provider doesn't mean safe. Christian man doesn't mean safe, okay? I don't care what family he has, what job he has, how charming he is. None of that matters. Safety is what matters. Consent, respect, how he handles when you're sleeping, what he does when you're sleeping, which should just be leave you the hell alone, how he handles power, privacy, all of these things. That's what matters. That's where the truth is. Now, the Anthony Eissenmenger case matters. It matters because it connects back to the Pelicot investigation and it exposes the same nightmare. Men are treating their wives like property and they expect submission. Marriage is too often exactly where the access is. And then we call men protectors, and yet they're the threat. Women are constantly being told to fear strangers while they're being harmed by husbands, boyfriends, exes, fathers, family members, and other men that they've trusted. The danger is not always outside. Subscribe if you're not already, and if you're trying to understand coercive tactics, understand what you've been through in your own relationship, you're trying to get out, you're trying to rebuild, you can work with me one-on-one, join any of my group coaching programs, or join me inside my online community for survivors, She Rises Collective. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.